Marston's Domain.
Hey everyone, Marson here, and today I want to talk about the buffs that King K. Rool got in patch 3.0. Now everyone knows that I'm someone that really advocated that he needed buffs, and we got them, so I'm going to go over what the buffs actually are, and then I'm going to go over my overall impression of the buffs. So the first buff we have is that forward air now has increased the high damage range, which the K. Rool Discord deciphered means the sweet spot. So it's now easier to get a sweet spot with forward air. And from what the K. Rool Discord was able to figure out, it seems like now it's really hard to get the sour spot with forward air. So basically the hitbox is the same, it's just they made the range of sweet spot much bigger within the hitbox that was already existing. And the same thing goes with forward tilt. They did the same thing with this, however, the range isn't as much as what they did with forward air. From what the K. Rool Discord was able to figure out, it's only changed by one little square in the training room. So it's not a ton, but it's still a bigger sweet spot than what it had before. And for those of you who don't know, there's sour spots and sweet spots, and you normally always want to go for a sweet spot unless if a sour spot can lead into a combo of some sort, but the sweet spot is where you're going to get the most damage and could potentially lead to a stock. They did change his up throw to where it's now not affected by wind when throwing, which is a buff, but if you're a competitive player, you'll probably not really come across that unless if you're doing something in doubles. And then I do want to go over this really quick. It's technically a nerf. Well, I mean, it is a nerf, but I just don't think it's significant at all. They changed the crown to where it does less shield damage, and I really don't think that matters. I really don't think anyone was using crown to destroy someone's shield. If anything, blunderbuss does way more shield damage and they didn't touch that, so I don't really think that matters. And now we're getting into the two bigger ones, the next being down special, where they made it so that if you get the counter or if the counter fails, you're able to act out of it faster. And from what the K. Rool Discord was able to figure out, it's about 5 frames. So not a ton, but it's still less time that you're stuck being vulnerable. And then up air had the same treatment where they reduced vulnerability, and it got reduced from 82 frames to 52 frames. It got a 30 frame reduction. That is a lot. As you can see as I'm demonstrating, I'm able to do 2 up airs off of doing a double jump. You could not do that before. If you up aired, you had to fast fall. Basically your only option with that move. So now that I've done the rundown, I want to go over how I feel about these buffs. So I'll cut right to the chase because I'm sure people are wondering, do these buffs change how he is on the tier list? I don't think so at all. I don't think these buffs are enough to really affect things enough to push him up in the tier list. I think the down B buff will help, but there are still a lot of active frames that you're stuck where you are vulnerable. But that reduction is still good, even though it's only 5 frames. It'll still help. There should still be situations where you might have gotten punished in the previous patch and you weren't because of this buff. There are chances of that. I think that the forward air buff will help a lot because I think as a K. Rool player, you should be using forward air a good amount. It's a really good spacing tool, and it's something that even I've been trying to get more used to using. So the fact that that got buffed and the sweet spot is now really big, I think that's a very significant buff because as the meta develops and more K. Rools start using forward air more, I think this buff will come in handy a lot of the times. The up air buff is really nice, but so far I haven't really seen how this is gonna allow for too many different variations in terms of doing things against your opponent when they're in the air, because it still has 52 frames of end lag. And as you can see, I'm only able to do 2 up airs before hitting the ground. But I do think that this will allow for safer usage of the move, because if you were off stage, I mean, you almost never wanted to do up air because it was just scary. And now that we're not going to just die from doing up air, maybe we could get away with certain things. Maybe now running off stage and doing up air and hitting them against the stage, even though you could just spike them, maybe there'll be different situations where belly armor and the invincibility on his head will actually allow for stage spikes. I don't know. More doors have been opened, basically, now that they've buffed the end lag on his up air. So overall, I mean, I'm happy he got buffed, But at the same time, I'm not jumping up and down like I was when I first heard about him getting buffed, when I just skimmed through the information. It's still a buff, and I'm not unhappy about it, but in terms of him being a huge contender in the metagame, I still think he needs a speed buff. Whether he'll ever get one or not, I don't know, but I still think that's one of his biggest problems. He's just very slow on the ground and in the air. But them changing how projectiles work has helped him a lot, I think. And I think as time goes on and we play more in this patch, I think it's going to be very noticeable. It's something that I don't know for a fact, but the fact that pretty much all projectiles got nerfed on shields, I think is pretty significant for a character like Rool. Because since he's such an easy target, and he's so slow, normally you're stuck shielding a lot of the times if someone's zoning you. You have to slowly get to them. And from what I've gathered is that when it talks about power shielding projectiles, I'm pretty sure it's referring to the fact that now if you parry a projectile, you can act out of the parry faster, if it's a projectile. Which I think that's pretty big too, because as it was, I didn't really see much use of parrying projectiles, because normally you're really far away and why not just jump over it? But now if parrying actually really benefits you when it comes to projectiles, this could be really big for Rool. So not just the buffs with just Rool, but with the changes overall with 3.0, I think it does definitely help Rool. I just don't think this is any game changer like some patches that happened in Smash 4 where a character went from barely seen to dominating. So that's all I really have to say about this. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about all this. Do you like the buffs? Do you wish you got more buffs? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this, want to support my content, feel free to subscribe. And until next time, I'll see y'all later. Take care, everyone.